Poised for Exit is a show for business owners who want to achieve a successful exit based on their own terms. Your business exit will likely be the biggest financial transaction of your life, and for most, you'll have one shot at doing it right. The topics and guests we feature and the stories they share will provide valuable ideas and strategies to improve operations and grow enterprise value so you can achieve the best possible exit outcome. Now here's your host, award-winning certified exit planning advisor, Julie Keys.
Welcome everyone to the Poised for Exit podcast show. Today's guest is a PhD specialist in family business consulting who's going to talk with us about the types of issues facing family businesses today and how he finds the solutions they need. We're going to hear from him right after our show sponsors. Are you a business owner getting ready to transition? If so, I recommend True North Mergers and Acquisitions as your confidential strategic partner. They understand your business sale isn't just about one buyer and the price, but what you net that counts. In other words, what you get to keep. When you're ready for a higher level of representation that delivers consistent results, contact True North M&A to do the heavy lifting of selling your business. Learn more at tnma.com. That's tnma.com.
Exiting your business is a big deal, both financially and emotionally. I'm John Marquet, Certified Exit Planning Advisor with TrustPoint. We help business owners transition smoothly on their terms. Our focus is on maximizing value, minimizing stress, and giving you confidence in what's next. Whether you're selling or passing the torch, we make the process seamless. Start planning today at trustpointinc.com. That's trustpointinc.com.
For business owners, it can be overwhelming to start planning a transition or exit strategy, but it's so important to avoid unwanted outcomes and unexpected tax bills. The CPAs at JAK, John A. Knutson & Company, can guide you and help make sense of the numbers. Our firm was established over 90 years ago, and we've assisted countless companies with ownership transitions. Leaving your business is a process that takes time. So contact us today to discuss your situation. Visit our website at jakcpa.com. That's jakcpa.com.
My name is Todd Crow, and I'm the president of the Twin Cities Exit Planning Chapter. If you're a business owner and advisor and want to learn more about the world of exit planning, you're invited to visit the Twin Cities chapter of the Exit Planning Institute. You can expect top-level education delivered by subject matter experts at every monthly meeting. Grow your network and draw from the learning that could be a game changer for your business or your practice. There's no pressure to become a member, so come and see what the buzz is all about. Our meetings are held the second Wednesday of the month, 7:30 to 9 a.m. See the show notes for more information and registration links.
Hello, Poised for Exit listeners. We are here today, once again, with Dr. Jeremy Lurey, who's the founder of Family Legacy First. Jeremy, welcome back to Poised for Exit.
Thanks, Julie. Looking forward to the conversation.
Me too. Always so enlightening. And as we know, there are a very, very large number of family businesses in the United States and in other countries. We have listeners from all over the world, and so many of the problems that family businesses face are not exclusive to the U.S. So since you were last on the show, what are some of the things, because it's been probably 6 months or so, issues, obstacles, things that you've been running into with your clients that might be a little bit different from the last time we got together?
Well, you mentioned international, so I'll start there. I have one international family that I support. Their business is probably, I don't know, euro to dollar conversion, depending on the markets, but let's just say it's a $500 million company to give it some scale. G2 ownership right now, and they are committed to their third gens going through college and university and getting their degrees and figuring out what they want to do in life. But ultimately, supporting them in becoming good directors, good shareholders and fiduciaries of that business. They actually have moved to a professional management model, and they have no interest in ever having a family CEO. Again, they want to have non-family CFO and head of sales and all those people. So they do still have two of the siblings for G2s who are kind of chair, vice chair of the board, and they do some operational work. But it's just really interesting. It's a very different kind of a family dynamic. Usually we want to bring our kids into the business and groom them to be those CEO, COO kind of operators. But they're so clear that while they need to sort of learn the business and go through for the manufacturing process or work on the sales team for a few months to really understand to be good owners, their
Mm-hmm.
path is not to join the business. And so it's just been an interesting dynamic. Two of the G3s just graduated from American universities. And are they going to join the business for the next couple of years to learn it? Are they going to go pursue other interests? And both of
Mm-hmm.
those two actually found some great paths forward. One getting a master's in sustainability in business, one doing some private equity, sort of investing, VC type work. And both those experiences, very different, education and more practical, will prepare them to, support the family legacy in the future. It's just sort of a not now. So it's interesting with a larger business like that you and I work with sometimes,
Sure.
that they're clear. It is a professional corporation. And back to exit planning, they're actually looking at potential IPO. They're looking at sort of some private investments and some other things to diversify.
Yeah.
But just based on the market right now, they're in more of an acquisition mode to scale and then do some of those other things that, again, just not as common for some of my other clients who are
Yeah.
very much a legacy owner operator type of a model.
Yeah, for sure. Makes me wonder, you probably would know this because you work with them. Did they have that kind of stuff set up in their governance? Like you need to go work somewhere else first or get an advanced degree or anything like that? Yeah.
They do, and so that's
Mm-hmm.
why we have this annual meeting.
Sure.
We review the family charter. We
Mm-hmm.
talk about sort of the rising gen's education and experience, make sure that we're supporting them in their path forward. So yes, they've actually done a lot of the governance work that most families tend to neglect, where all of those children, they're actually two other teenagers now going into college in the fall. And so they know what their next, 3 to 5 years needs to look like before they can take that next step into the family's
So
enterprise.
that's interesting. I mean, I love to hear that because it really does give the legacy of the family business a better chance at continuing on, right?
Absolutely.
When
Yeah.
when they have those practices. So, what about when they don't?
So let me tell you the more local story. I was just in the Midwest 2 weeks ago, a couple hours from you, with a longstanding family business client of mine. And we do these biannual, we call it a family council meeting because the rising gens are not shareholders yet. So they're not owners. They're
Sure.
not directors on the board. We don't
Mm-hmm.
have sort of a true board structure yet. So that family council language, pulling from the family governance toolkit. But one of the 4 children works in the business right now. One has said he wants to come back in the next year or so, and we never really know, is he really committed to that or not?
Mm-hmm.
Because he lives in a beautiful place in our country that maybe you don't want to go back to, sort of small town USA.
Mm-hmm.
But given some life experience in his profession, like he thinks he's going to do that. And so these meetings are just a great chance to try to bring a little bit of that governance and structure and share information about the enterprise and what's going on when, the 2 older brothers, one's pursuing an MBA and one is a very professional sort of financial services career. They're looking at younger brother going, well, what's he doing? And where's the business going? And, asking questions that you would expect sort of shareholders or fiduciaries, but clearly until they become owners, they have no right, no fiduciary or legal right to that information. They don't need to know what little brother gets paid. They don't manage his performance. So whether he is doing a good job or not a good job rolls up to dad, the patriarch, who's still president, CEO. And so just a very different dynamic when you have an operating family rather than more of an owning family. When you have children who are in the business and they have put a stake in the ground, this is my career. Like I want to carry the torch forward for our family. And in the meetings a couple weeks ago, to have dad sitting in a room with son and non-family sort of VP of operations and say, I treat you differently, right? I know I show up as a dad and I'm critical of you where I'm not our non-family leadership. And that just sort of, very cathartic moment and emotional sort of vulnerability for a father to recognize and look in the mirror like, yeah, I'm probably not being fair to you. And from a transition perspective, the other part of exit planning we always need to be aware of is the non-family side. That VP of operations looking at one son in the business, another coming in, he's asking the question, should I be looking for a new job? Right? Because he's worried about his own job security. And so being able to use some of the tools that I know you use with your clients as well, like a key person life insurance policy and developing non-equity executive compensation strategies and long-term incentive plans, all those kinds of things. But even just to put together an org chart that shows this non-family leader's job title moving up the hierarchy. Having him here, listen, if the bus ever comes and hits dad, you are the person we need as that bridge to our next generation, because they're at least 3 to 5, if not, 7+ years away from being able to run the company. It's that non-family leader who's going to be so critical. And so it was just a really powerful meeting for him to hear he has a future, even though he doesn't share the same last name as everyone, for him to hear how valued his contributions are and that they're actually going to invest more in him because he will not ever get ownership shares. Some of the clients you and I work with, they give up ownership, I would offer, too soon and unnecessarily. So
Yes.
I really like those financial tools we can use to
Yeah.
create, call it phantom stock programs or anything else.
Right.
So, it's a very different scenario with a
Mhm.
smaller business operating company where the family wants to be in it versus that international family where they actually don't want to run it. They want this professional management team in place.
Yeah, like you said, own, not operate. So I'm wondering on the flip side of that, then, because it sounds like they've got things dialed in, obviously, with your expertise involved. But what happens when you've got a client who's insistent upon their next generation coming up and taking over who aren't necessarily qualified for that? Like, how do you handle that situation?
Well, so that non-family leader mentor bridge
Right.
is the key strategy to go to, right? In
Hmm.
this one family in the Midwest, they already have that person in place. But I
Sure.
have another family I work with here in California, second generation ownership and management right now, third generation. This is a bright young man. He has an incredible future in front of him. I believe 27 years old now, just got his
Mm.
PhD last year in mechanical engineering. So smarter than me for sure. Absolutely
Mm.
the right skill set for running this company, that they are kind of a highly engineered manufacturing company. And he's not ready at 27 or 28
No.
years old. We need to groom him to be ready. So I often look to that advisor, sort of consultant, could be a 3 to 5 year contract where we are hiring someone to
Hmm.
play that sort of grown up role, if you will, whether we call it
Right.
COO, VP of operations, could be
Yeah.
president. And you or I, as the business owners, we maintain that CEO title, but really make someone else president to groom that next generation. So I mean,
Yeah.
that's one of the most powerful strategies we have available to us. But you asked the question, when the kid's not ready, assuming they actually want to work in the business. I actually thought where you were going to was the kids don't want to and they're being forced in, right? Because
Well,
that's a
there's all those,
complete
right? Yeah,
right.
all of the above. I was actually thinking like when the parents want them to take over as leaders and they're not qualified to, not just because of their age, but because they just don't have the expertise or the desire or whatever it is, right? They want
Sure.
to stay in the business. But then maybe the solution to that then would that be to bring on a permanent C-level leaders?
I got that scenario as well. One
I
of my
bet you
other
do.
current clients,
Sure.
second generation owner, is a non-operator. Her father passed away several years ago, and so she is the single shareholder. She has 3 children, two who really have no interest in the business and are living their lives separately. One who absolutely loves the machinery, and they're in sheet
Mm.
metal fabrication, and so sort
Hmm.
of a very blue collar nuts and bolts type of an environment.
Hmm.
And this I shouldn't say young gentleman, he's probably young to mid 40s right now, but he remembers walking the shop with grandpa. He
Mm.
used to work in a different business that had a similar sort of a product set, and so he used to run machines in a different business. I mean, he loves this, but he has no interest in a full-time job. And given their family position, we'll just say sort of the wealth and the broader estate,
Hmm.
he's going to be a good board member and he'll be a good director, fiduciary for at
Sure.
some point his siblings, estate, as well, as they all are going to be tied into this business. But we've explored all that. If he wanted to become CEO one day, what would that path look like? Well, he'd have to
Hmm.
take on a management responsibility now and really work full time. Where he lives is not where the business is located currently. And so that didn't align well with his life.
Sure.
But
Sure.
being a director and sort of still having one foot in the door and being able to ask questions from an owner's perspective is a really good fit. And so you're right, we have all kinds of scenarios of the kids aren't ready, but we can groom them, to maybe there are no kids or there are no kids who are interested,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
then we need to find some other more permanent non-family paths. And I'm a huge advocate for family owned but not operated. I
Sure.
mean, where else are
Yeah.
you going to get the return on investment? I know,
Yes.
I can go buy Apple stock, but it's not likely to give me back 20, 30 times my
Yeah.
investment, which
Right.
some of these businesses that are very profitable, and
Yeah.
if we can sustain them, what a great investment
Mm.
and an asset to have.
Definitely. Yeah. And I would imagine too that because some of these situations get rather complicated, well, even if they're not, you're going to collaborate with other advisors. I imagine you're working with financial advisors and estate planning attorneys all the time, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Depending on the scenario, it's different ones, but we're all in that ecosystem. So it could be the CPAs and accountants I'm
Sure.
partnering with.
Mm-hmm.
In one situation, it's about sort of helping the G1 founders step out and sort of giving them the accounting, the finance information they need to structure the deal, to pass down to G2 and really helping them understand sort of their life goal. For then you get into sort of wealth management and the financial planning on how much do I need? What's my number? Right?
Right.
If I'm not going to have income,
Yeah.
I regularly am partnering with the life insurance side to write that key
Mm-hmm.
person policy or create other non-equity strategies,
Very
just as
good.
well as the property and casualty insurance side, because most of my clients do have operating companies. They own real estate, they own buildings.
Yes.
So it's not just they need a succession plan for their life insurance, but they actually need to be well covered, because if we don't manage that risk, all it takes is one sort of catastrophic event and that entire family has lost everything. So it's
Yeah.
that whole suite of advisors that I lean on, for my families.
Yeah, so smart, Jeremy. I'm so glad that you brought that up because honestly, in my experience, the insurance side of transition planning is many times overlooked. Just like assumed, well, it's there. Yeah, we have coverage, we're good. But nobody's really doing any audits or thinking about ways to strategically
Right.
use it. And so I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah. My
So,
favorite example of that one, Julie, I go back several years with this one situation. Patriarch started the company, let's say 30 years prior, 35 years prior.
mhm,
His son had been working in the business for at least 15, maybe 20 years at that point. Son and daughter completely alienated, like they're just estranged, no relationship. And it was from the father down. So father and daughter, really no connection at all, but father
mhm,
and son very close in the business. Well, he had already gifted, at least on paper, 49% of the business to the son as sort of up and coming president and a
mhm.
leader. So I was speaking to him, and he was probably mid 70s at the time. He's now sort of early 80s. I said, "So what happens when you're not here? Does Junior get the whole business?" "Oh no, I've got to give the other half to my daughter. Like I need that equalizing payment. Junior's already got his half." I said, "Okay, so you're not going to be here to be referee. You're telling me your two children who never talk to each other are going to actually run a business effectively." He goes,
Mm,
"Oh, yeah, that doesn't make sense." And so, what a perfect example of where you can use a tool like life insurance
yeah,
for senior and give daughter the sort of equalizing payment so that
yes.
you don't hand strap, the son, Junior, into the business. I want him to be able to make all the strategic decisions in the world. And I regularly use the example of what if in that situation, sister says, "I need $1 million to buy some ponies."
Mm,
What's he going to do about it when he says, "I need $1 million to buy a new fleet of forklifts"?
mm,
And so, yeah, I definitely am looking at those sort of key person policies, the way that we ensure, and not just through insurance products, but other ways, the way we ensure business
mhm.
continuity, because leaders don't always have the discretionary power and control to make those decisions. And once you start to get into the dollars and cents, it
Yeah.
becomes really, really challenging for some of these owning families.
Well, and just bringing them back into the logical side of the decision-making process, right? Because the emotional side, of course, is always going to be there and expected to be, right? Let's
Sure.
switch gears a little bit here before we wrap up. Let's talk about business transitions over the next couple of years and
Hmm.
what your take is on, because you're in California, I'm in Minnesota. You said that you work with international companies. This show has an international reach. And so let's just talk about from your perspective, because you are an expert, like you have worked with family businesses and from all sizes, but mostly middle market. Like, what are you seeing? What are some of the things that you anticipate?
So one of the interesting things right now, just look at the markets, and without getting too political, look at just what's happening in the U.S. right from an administration perspective, and whether it's tax code or things of that nature. I do see a shift from, let's say, several years ago. I've been involved in the refrigerated warehousing, the cold storage industry for many, many years now. It's a whole other podcast on how I ended up there.
Sure.
But in that environment, because there were a couple of big players going through acquisition and trying to go public, these families were getting 24 to 26x on their multiples. I mean, imagine, like, why would you keep working if you could monetize a business like that? Now we're
Right.
much, more in that 8 to 10x, maybe 12x if you have the right business.
Still good. Yeah.
Some companies more 6x, right? So I think there's been a huge shift in the last couple of years with the markets where that I'm just going to get out because of the cash has disappeared. So now we're in a situation where I do still have some aging parents who are passing down to their children, and we'll call that sort of succession transition rather than a full exit. And so how do we structure those deals? Is it a pure gift? Are they buying it? How do we value it? Again, we get into equalizing payments. I've got one situation now. One of three brothers is an attorney. The other two brothers are not. Just by bar regulations, those other two brothers can't be owners of the law firm. And so how do we value everyone's needs through estate planning purposes? And so I think that continues over time as parents are aging out and their children, who are typically multiple siblings, are now taking over. And so how do we protect them with board governance tools? And the other side I'd share, for this is a current example that I think will become more of the norm moving forward, again, with sibling and cousin groups. So I think I shared a little bit about this during our last episode. Fourth generation family, more than 100-year-old business. Three brothers are currently the owner operators. And as long as they all want to keep working, they have no need for you or me or, this episode. But one brother is getting older and saying, I want to retire.
Yeah.
Younger brothers then saying, well, I have enough to live my life. I mean, I don't need this job anymore. If big brother's gone, I'm gone too. It's the middle brother who wants to keep working. And so now we get into a situation where we have siblings or ownership groups with differing goals in life. And I'm not going to say either's right or wrong.
Sure.
But it just it creates a different path forward. So we're now structuring the exit, trying to get to the transaction that works for everybody, both the sort of continuing leadership as well as the I want to monetize and get as much out of this business sort of sibling owners. And what's interesting in that situation, that I hope this is a trend that is shifting. Maybe you've got perspective on this. This family really has not set their business up for success without them. All three as operators, very involved, unlike my international family. This business can't operate without them. They just don't have those non-family leaders in place or a leadership team structure. Yeah, and we're talking probably $150+ million business. I mean, for them to reach this kind of national scale with multiple operations, it's just sort of unheard of. That's typical for 10 or $25 million business, that it's all on the owner's shoulders. But at some point, we need to be acting as if we're going to sell, whether we ever do or not. I mean, my goal is to always better the business, create a more sustainable operation. And then I get to choose. Do I sell and monetize with the liquidity event? Do I pass it down to my next generation? And I'm falling into more and more of these scenarios where people have never thought about sale. They've never thought about sort of continuous improvement to better the business. And now they're wanting to go to market and get that, maybe not 24x multiple, but 12 even. And they're realizing that they just aren't going to get those offers. They're going to get the 6 to 8 at best, because the business can't operate without them.
Yeah, and then they end up with an earnout that they don't want. And because it's so owner-centric, the owner has to stay on longer than they wanted to. Yeah, that's happening a lot for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I have one situation now where they're just sort of getting into that of, I refuse to have an earnout. I want the check on day one. That's great. That's likely going to have an impact on the value that you get from the buyer. And so, we'll find our way through that. And obviously there are some different compromises, but I wish ownership groups, especially the family operators, would think 2, 3, 5 years in advance of those transactions and build up the leadership teams I mean, I learned decades ago that if you have the right leadership team in place, those successor sort of next gens, whether they're family or not, you can increase your multiple by 2 to 3x. And I don't know if
Totally.
those statistics still hold true, but there's no reason to go to market with the weight of the business on your shoulders if you could actually groom those other leaders for a couple of years to where you can get the exit you want without those long earnout periods.
Well, and that's one way to de-risk the company, right? So the more the owners have
Absolutely.
de-risked the company and made it less about them, like you were talking about before with continuity, the higher their multiple will be and the better their outcomes. So yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, parting words, parting recommendations, Jeremy, for our audience.
I think I'll go back to my psychology background, Julie. I mean, I've got a management consulting background and executive coaching, but really from the psychology side, because that seems to be coming up more and more with many of my clients, just a couple of things. One, remember, this is such an emotional journey. I have a client now who is 40 plus years in his career who's letting go. That's going to take time. And if you are the son or daughter or non-family leader of that person as the successor, just remember it is an emotional journey and sort of give them some grace and be patient with the process. And two, the other side of that, I would just offer, if we're talking a family enterprise, family first. Right? I mean, I want grandparents to see their grandkids. And I've had so many situations where the children in the middle say, do this or you'll never see your grandchildren again, kinds of things. And just, family's family. I always say, if I do my job well, we can be thankful at Thanksgiving. And so many people get wrapped up in the transaction value, that way of operating as if your way is better than my way or vice versa. And just, if we can be graceful with those who are exiting and support them in that life transition. And then two, really just remember, it's about legacy and it's about family. It's not about the business itself. We could sell the business. We could all be happy. We can sustain the business to a next generation. We can all be happy. But heat of the moment, just try to pause, take a beat and breathe, and remember the person sitting on the other side of the table is your mother or father or your niece or nephew or your cousin or your sibling and your married partner, whatever these relationships are, because it gets so volatile and so emotionally charged in a lot of the conversations I'm a part of because we forget that core middle of it all.
And you're trying to unravel and kind of bring them back to ground zero. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate the work that you're doing for family business. I have a very big place in my heart for family business because I grew up in it with, generationally on both sides for many generations. So really good stuff. Thank you for that work. And thanks for being on the show again, Jeremy. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
We'll have you back again. And to our audience, thank you so much for joining us as well. We really appreciate your comments, your ideas, your sharing, and please join us again next time. We'll see you soon.